Record. Okay, we are recording.
Good, so there, I just have to go to chat and click on your name, and then it asks me if I want to make you the host. And I did, so we're good. Yep.
All right.
So I've been really busy. I've got like 3 projects going right now. I didn't look at any of the videos yet, so I thought maybe we'd start with you just kind of telling me what's going on and then deciding what you wanted to look at first.
Okay. I actually have one from today
Okay,
that we can look at together.
that'd be fine. I read through the emails and it sounded like you were having trouble keeping her engaged with the whole deal.
Yeah, she's unusual that she's not really pretty enthusiastic about the game. And
Right.
it'll take a minute for this to load, but
Sure.
you know, she wanders away, she kind of looks away, she goes to pick up sticks, anything, you know, rocks, anything that she can find, and all that is a change.
Is this when there's no sheep, or when there's sheep or goats? There's no sheep. That's the problem. When there's goats or no goats, or only one or the other?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Right.
Wow,
So,
look how fancy you're getting.
yeah, I've been playing around with this stuff. So yeah, I mean, even without the goats, now admittedly, you know, they're 15, 20 feet away, but they're behind 2 rows of fence, and it really doesn't look like she's focusing on the goats. Now I know their presence probably had some effect, but like you'll see today in the beginning, where I call her, I do a recall, and she doesn't come, which is unheard of. You know, the recall is one thing that she's really
solid.
almost 100% fluent with, especially this whistle recall. I can call her from 500 yards away and she makes a beeline for me. So this is unusual.
Oh, tell me, you moved, are we in the same pen that you were where that shed was? Or not?
Where what was?
The shed, the little goat
shed.
shed.
Yeah, I moved that. I got that so the goats couldn't go inside there.
Is it still in there and I can't see it, or is it moved out?
I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's over towards the right back corner of the pen.
Okay, so it's in the corner out of the way, which opens up the whole pen a lot better for you.
Right.
Okay.
Now I can move that out of there. You know, I don't really intend to house the goats in here until springtime. So they don't really need a shelter in there. They'll be moving in and out.
Right. Yeah, I don't, you know, I don't think that if it's out over in the corner, I don't know, we'll see. Well, and I have another question on the gate on the left. There's a brown gate, it looks like. Is that is that open, or?
Yes, I accidentally left it open. I closed it before we started, but I put this gate in so I could move the goats in and out without having to walk them all the way around.
Sure.
So it makes it a whole lot easier on me, but I accidentally left it open. It's closed by the time we get started.
Okay. All right.
So she seems a little uncomfortable being in the pen. She doesn't seem to want to go in there, like she's like she thinks she's not supposed to be in there or something. I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with the electric fence.
Okay, stop. Just, well, you can just let it run for a minute. But so you called her and she didn't come. If the goats aren't in there, have you called her? Does she come or not?
No, actually the same thing happened
without the goats.
Day before yesterday, and I don't think I actually filmed that session because
that's all right.
But the same thing happened. She just kind of stood there and looked at me like she was hesitant or confused or, you know, something.
Right. Okay, so before we go on, what I would suggest is, what I would do is I would start a ways from the pen and call her and get her to come and play tug or something fun. And then I'd release her, and then I'd a little closer and and do that until, you know, like just spend a session, just getting her to come to you so that she comes when you call her to the pen, and then not have any goats in there at that time, and just have her come in and just have fun with her, work on downs or recalls or anything that she's been good at, and use your flirt pole and try and get her to have fun in there again, and to start associating that again with being fun, because something's changed and I don't know what, because I don't even know if I watched all your videos, if I would know what, because it sounds like even when you sent okay, you've sent me this, we'll say this is the third one, and then you sent another one before it, and then you sent 2 or 3 before that. But the first ones you sent, it sounded like she wasn't as engaged as she had been.
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
so something has changed, and I have no idea what,
Right.
from that time when she was going around, kind of covering the goats, chasing them a little bit, hooked up on them. And then all of a sudden now she's like, no. And so did anything happen that, you know, it sounds like you don't have any clue, or you would say, well, this happened or that happened, but
Yeah.
is there anything you can remember that happened that you thought,
No,
no, I didn't think so.
I really don't. You know, I expanded the square.
Mhm.
So now it's like 8 to 10 feet away from the small pen. But no, I mean, nothing has really happened. Now, once she gets going, she's pretty good, as you'll see. But, you know,
Okay. Well,
even a
start,
couple of times in the middle during this, she just I kind of lose her. I mean, her brain goes somewhere else, and it's like she's.
okay. Well, let me just, why don't you run it and we'll talk while it's running. I'll see if I want you to stop it and run it back or something, I will. And the goats are in the center of the square in their little pen.
Yes.
Okay. And have you worked with the square being that close to the outside before?
Today was probably the second day.
Okay, but you've had this problem even when the square was smaller.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to find out what the parameters are.
Yeah.
Something's going on. I just don't know what.
Yeah. Well, maybe you
Not-
can pick up on something I didn't, but I haven't.
Well, and I don't know that I'm really caring why as much as what can we do to change it, because there's no way we're going to know what, if you don't know, if you can't say, oh, she, you know, a goat hit her or she ran in the fence or blah, 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 then we don't know. We're not going to know. But so stop for just the video for just a second. Do you have her where you can stand on the outside and send her all the way around and back to you with her from your feet?
Stand on the outside of what?
The square.
Of the cone square.
Yes.
No, we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay, then I wouldn't even have I wouldn't be working with the goats at this point,
Oh.
because the whole idea is to get the flanks in place so she knows exactly what you want before we add the distraction of the goats. And whether they're a distraction where she's so hooked up on them that she can't think, or they're kind of a negative aversive, you know, because then you're going to know, okay, I would collapse my square back to the very small one, and I would start working on that so that you, like the other thing I saw, I can't remember when, but you would always turn and face her. What you want is you want to start having your back to her. So you could start by having her on your side. So your sides to her. Well, then she goes around and eventually she would go all the way around you. And then you keep the rat in the center and you keep stepping back, which usually if the rat stays there, she doesn't really care where you are. I mean, most times once you got the rat and it's on the ground or in the center, you can back up, because the dogs usually get so focused on the prey that they don't really you know, because you have managed to control your body language so much better than you used to, she's not keying on you like she used to. So what we want ideally is, that's why I was saying to read those chapters. Before you have goats in there, you want her to be able to go around the square. I would say you're standing like either in line with the square or a step back, which I don't think either one matters. You're facing in, the rat's on the ground, and you can have her start anywhere and go either direction, and she will go a complete circle or a quarter or whatever you ask, but she can go a complete circle. She will stop. And then I'd even work on flying changes. So you say, let's say she's at 3 o'clock, you say, come by. When she hits 9 o'clock, you say, wait a me, and she goes back the other way. And then maybe she goes all the way around back to where you ask her to start. And that way you want those flanks really fluent. And then you know that she knows what you're asking and she understands it. And then we introduce the goats and we say, okay, now we have these skills in place. And so after we got them in place, and I would expand the square more, so it gets to the point where it's about the size you're going to use in the pen. And then, you know, or I don't think you need it to be as big as you have it here, but maybe 4 foot in diameter less, you know, maybe 2 more feet away from the fence, a little smaller. And then without the goats, when can she do all that? Then if you have a video of that, then I'd love to see a video then with the goats in there, you know. So now, okay, we know she understands this because she can do it and it's easy and it's fun, but now the goats are in there. So what do we have now? And like I said, a lot of times the dogs can't do it because they're so focused on the stock, but you know, I'm not sure if she's finding the goats aversive or what it is, you know, because this all goes back to the electric fence a long time ago. And it's just, I remember working with Bob Bailey. He said he never worries about what an animal is thinking. He just looks at what he has and what he needs, because we can never know, you know. I mean, it didn't seem like that really affected her that much, but how do you ever know? And we're not going to try and figure out, unless there's something like, you know, you had her in there and you had a post up against the fence and then she hit it and it fell on her, you know, something like that. You say, okay, I understand that's what did it. But I don't spend any time looking at my dogs and saying, why do they do that? I just look at, what are they doing? What do I need? How do I get from here to there? And then I try setting things up to do that. So go ahead and run your thing. But yeah, that's why I wanted you to read the book. That's what I do, is I get those flanks fluent before I take them to stock. That's the whole idea, because once you do this, if they're not fluent, you don't know what the problem is or what you're, you know. So okay, she's not doing this. Well, is it because she doesn't really understand them? Is it this you know, the setup? Is it now there's goats? You know, I have no idea, because you've added so many things at once.
Right. Yeah, I think that may be the bottom line. We've just added so many things at once, a new environment, you know, it's a
Right.
completely new environment for her. This is, you know, well away from where we were. She's not been in this pen at all really before. I mean, she's been in and out of it a couple of times, but not to any extent. But
and so see, that's what I would have done at first, is I would have set it up and then I would have let her come in there without any goats, because there'd been goats in there before, so she can smell them. And I would have just played with her, especially because of her history of the electric fence, and not the electric fence, but the association of the electric fence with the goats. And so, you know, then I'd say, okay, I want this to be a real happy place. So then when I add things, I start knowing what is affecting her. Okay, so I can bring her in here. There's no cones. There's nothing. It's just her and I. We're tugging. We're doing stuff. She's great. I set up the cones and all of a sudden she acts odd. Okay, well, now we're going to have to sort through that and get that and until she's fluent doing what we need her to do. And then, okay, now we add the goats. Well, if you do it step by step, you can start to take steps to change things. But when you have so many things changed at once, you know, I don't know if she doesn't like that paddock for some reason, or it's the goats, or the, you know, the cones are too close to the fence, or, you know, I would just take her in there and let her run around and have a great time with nothing in there and just, you know, see where you are.
Okay, I'll do that. Because at one time today, I thought, God, is she afraid to come in this pen for some reason?
And
So even before the goats were in there and everything today, I was in and out of there, and you know, she follows me everywhere, but she wasn't coming in the pen. She was looking around outside and grabbing sticks and looking at me. And
okay, I have another question. Do the goats, they've been in the pen and they've been in this pen to the left that's got the electro netting. Have they been out here where, like outside of either of those pens?
they have not.
They have not. Okay, so when that smell is in the pen. Okay, so that could be part of it. So go ahead and run your video, but I'm just trying to, you know, tell you why I do things that way. And then we'll have some idea where you need to start, you know, to get her back on track. Oh, another thing I wanted to tell you is don't use just one goat. And I see you have more here, and that's great. But yeah, you want at least two, because it's really, they're a herd animal and they don't do well by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now there she looks pretty good.
Yeah, she, you know, 90% of the time she's doing well, but it's just those lapses of focus and enthusiasm.
And you're tugging with her, and yeah, that looks great. I mean, I would say, you know, have a little longer tug sessions because of this, and that's what you did. I'd say that was wonderful. Now she's kind of looked at the goats and you pushed her back. And see, I don't ever do that when my dog knows back. I just tell him back. I don't ever step into him just because I don't need to. That looks great.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Away.
Nice. I mean, that, if you didn't tell me what was coming, I would say, this looks great.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. I love trying to sort stuff out like this. So
Yeah, it is. It's
Good job.
dog psychology 101.
a mystery, yeah, because she looked, if I just saw the first 4 minutes of this video, I'd say, you're doing great. No problems here. She's doing wonderfully. And plus, usually once I get to having goats, I'm not using the flirt pole as the reinforcer anymore. It's the goats that are the reinforcer.
Okay.
You know, the ability to walk into them, but the dog's got to want to. If, you know, if they aren't, then you would use it. If they don't have that much instinct, I know she has it, so I'm not sure why you're not getting it. But so far, she's been great. That looks wonderful. Lovely. See how you want to start having her on your side, to the side, or your back. There, you got her on your side, that's fine. But you're facing out, so you need to start turning and facing your prey. Because when you work your sheep, your goats, you're gonna be facing them. You're not gonna be facing her.
So I guess I should do that gradually, maybe turn sideways to her and then.
Well, what I would do is I would just, I'd make a smaller square, and then I'd start on one side and have her you know, I'd have my back, I'm gonna keep my back to the square from now on. And I just have her on the side, so she's on my side. You know, I'm not gonna, you know, and then, cause when she goes, she's gonna do that, so that way, and then just starting her closer to you so that she's coming closer to you,
Okay.
you know, when she's having, but see, you're always looking at her. And we don't really want that. I
Mhm.
mean, so far she's done great. I haven't seen anything that I didn't like other than you facing her.
Yeah, I wonder if this is the video where I got her walking away, and that may have been yesterday. So maybe she's doing better already. I don't know.
Well,
I think that towards the end of this, I bring her right up to the goats and tug with her and
uh-huh.
give her some commands, and she does just fine. So I don't know. Maybe things are going to correct themselves.
Yeah, I would, I'd take the goats, leave the goats out, bring her in, play with her a little bit, and then work with her like this and work on turning your back to her, you know, so see, like there, you could, if you were on the other side, you know, that you'd be facing her, but she'd be coming around towards you and behind you.
So right there, do you think that she was going in to check out the goats? Because I didn't get the idea that, I'm sorry, I think I went back a few seconds too far, but
Okay.
I mean, she's coming inside the circle, the square, the cone
Right.
square, which she often does after
Mhm.
I enlarge it a little bit. She just seems to remember the old boundary, but that corrects itself over time. So right here, do you think she's going in to look at the goats, or?
I think she's sniffing. I think she's sniffing. I think she smells something. And that can be one of two things. Either she's distracted or she's anxious and she's showing it as sniffing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got the idea that she was distracted and anxious
Yes. Good
rather than
girl.
kind of dialing in on the goats, but
Good girl.
But see, because she doesn't hook up to him very well, which I don't understand. You know, she knows she can't move him, which I understand. So she's not worried about him. And so it's just hard to know exactly.
yeah. Well, I think as long as they're just sitting there calmly eating and everything, you know, she's not going to be as hooked up with them.
Yeah, see that, but see, like my dogs, they would be, they wouldn't care if they were lying down. They would just be hooked up. I mean, there's no, oh, they're not doing anything. A guy that I met in New York has a puppy she's about 4 months old right now. And he took her back to the place where we worked, and he had the sheep, they were in a pen and they were all laying down. And he came in, they were all laying down. Finally, one got up, stretched, but just stood there, didn't even take a step. And he was concerned because he was playing with a flirt pole, and his puppy was really into the flirt pole rat. Like he'd put it out there and she'd stalk up to it, and then he'd move it, she'd just chase it, and she, you know, she was really into it. But he was concerned. She said she's not interested in the sheep. And I said, well, if you would tie her up away from them and then go in and move them. So she's been around them a couple times, but you don't know, you know, she hasn't really decided she's, you know, that they're something that she gets to engage with, even through a pen. And, but if they move, then she's going to start realizing. And so once she hooks up to them, I mean, it's almost like most dogs, once they turn on, there's no turning off. Like just watching stock from a long distance is reinforcing. It's just like they live for it. And that's what, and seeing her in Georgia, Judy in Georgia, and seeing her with the cats and seeing her with the flirt pole, it's like it's in there, but she somehow, there is that barrier between her and the goats, then I assume it's because of the shock that she got, that it makes her unsure. So, but yeah, they don't have to move. Yours are walking around. I mean, if I took my dog and said, went to the gate, let's say I laid him down and wherever she was and called them and they came to me, they would come to me and they would stand next to me and they would not look at me. They would look at those goats and they would never look at me the whole time unless I tried to really get them to look at me. They won't look at me. They are just like their whole world revolves around that stock. So there is no, well, they aren't doing this, they aren't doing that. She chased them around. She knows what they are. I think there's just a level of anxiety there that she has from them. And I think you may have to let them out again and let her do some interacting with them, chasing to get her, you know, if she's a little anxious, if you can get her aroused a little bit, you know, that'll help. But I wouldn't do that until you've got your flanks really straightened up and, you know, fluent. And then like I said, then I'd take down any of the cones and just have the pen, but let them out of the pen and just let her move them around, because I think she needs that ability to interact with them and get aroused more, you know, knowing that she's affecting them. Right now, she's not affecting them, but in order for a dog to herd with, other than just having her be mechanical, which I don't know if she even would for you, because it's not that she doesn't have any herding instinct. She certainly does. It's that she finds the goats aversive in a certain way. And so I think she has a level of fear of them that you might be able to overcome more with, like we did, where we let her move them around. But that would be totally different from, you know, going in there and working on your flanks with the flirt pole and the cones. You know, if you want to pull that stuff all out and just take her in and let her kind of move them around a little bit, that's the only thing I can think of. And one thing I remembered is, like, when you had the little shed in there, that sometimes they would go around one way and she'd try and go around and you wouldn't let her, you'd usually stop her, but it's like she was covering. So, you know, if they're running one way and she comes around to try and cut them off, I'd let her, because then she's trying to control their movement, you know. And I'd rather she did that than just chase them around, you know. But I think every time I've seen you with her, you've done pretty good as far as not letting her get too over the top, but, you know, allowing her to, you know, move them and interact with them. And I think having that shed out of there will help a lot. But I'm guessing, this is my guess, is that it goes back to the electric fence with the goats. I said, every dog I've ever seen will, like, we would work dogs at a guy I went to, Niles, and we might have 6 dogs there and we'd put them against a fence and we'd work one, and the other dogs would all be watching, except like one guy had a dog that they had tried to get her to walk in and they couldn't, and they tried to put a rope on her and pull her to walk in, and it got so aversive that she would lay there and turn her back on us working, because the sheep were aversive to her. And see, I just wonder if she's right on the cusp, and you may have to let her have some fun with them, move them around, you know, as long as you don't have that one that's pregnant in there, and you're gonna, you know, have her either on a long line or something so you can get a hold of her. But I think you might have to do that some more to get her enthused. I don't know what else, you know, I can really offer.
Let me ask, I think I mentioned in one of my emails that is there a possibility that she's just become too accustomed to the goats?
No,
No. Okay.
no.
So
She-
having her go around the farm and see the goats all the time, no, that's unlikely. Okay.
The only thing that it might have taught her is that they're off limits, and that usually what happens is it kind of makes them, builds up an aggravation, and then when they get a chance, they just really go kind of crazy trying to, chase them and grab them and do all sorts of stuff because they're kind of, frustrated. But just, seeing them, I just, when you let her loose, then she started to look at him. She doesn't even hardly look at him. And then after that, she needs to hook up to him. She isn't hooking up to him. And that's what I'm saying. My dogs, and most border collies, I mean, it's just like, how when your cats come in there and she sees them, I mean, she is like laser focused on them. Well, that's what she would, and that's how she was with those sheep in Georgia. She couldn't even hear you. And so it's got to be that electronet in the goats, that she's associated that with them. And so that's why, like you said, you stepped in and pushed her back. I'm not doing anything that she finds aversive when I'm around the goats. I'm not doing anything. I'll ask her to back, and if she'll do it, then I'll let her tug or something. Or if she's in there, I'll just go out and call her. But I'm not gonna put any pressure on her when she's in there. Really, she can do no wrong, and it's all happy, upbeat, and hopefully, two different scenarios. One, no goats, and you've got the cone squares, you're working on flanks. Then no cone squares, no nothing, just the goats, or even just nothing. Just have her in there, play tug, recalls, fun stuff, happy stuff. And then goats, just let her kind of move them around, and maybe cover them so that if they start to take off in one direction, and if she starts to go in front of them and starts to bring them back, let her come, let her bring them, let her control them a little bit, and get some arousal. Don't, if she started to go around, then you'd stop her. Well, let her, that's what you want. She wants to control motion, but she's just not hooked up to them yet. And I've seen her hooked up. I mean, like in Georgia, she couldn't even, listen to you. She was so hooked up on the sheep. And so we don't need her that hooked up on these, but she should, when she comes in there, she should be, they should be the most important thing in there, above you, above anything. And at this point, they're just kind of, I don't know that she really looks at them. I couldn't, I didn't pay that much attention, but
Every once in a while, she'll sort of crouch and get into a stalking position and look at them for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and then that's
right. Yeah, so I think it's still in there. It's just, I'm sure that, like even when you worked in the beginning on that flat and the goats were up on the hill and she didn't pay any attention, like I said, my dogs, there's stock there. They would pay attention, even if they knew they couldn't get to them. Maybe it's I've got, my one area is woven wire, and my sheep can go, I can put him behind there. When Sir, he knows he can't get there, the gate's there, he knows it doesn't matter. He's over there like, he's just hooked up on him. He's watching him. He wants to get to him. And so we're going to have to foster that. And, that's, I think, I know it's in there because I've seen her in other situations. And we saw a little bit when the goats were loose. And so I think you're going to have to go back to that a little bit more, and maybe let her do a little bit of stuff that you don't really like.
Yeah. So should I move back and forth between the scenarios, or should I just follow a progression, like playing in there with no cones and no goats, then cones and then goats?
I would start just playing in there with nothing. And then when she seemed good at that, then I would do some of with the cones and you're just working on flanks, and then other times it'd be, you know, like the loose goats. And so that's one or the other. You can work on at the same time once you get her, so you can go to the gate and call her and she'll come over to you, and then she'll want to come in and do stuff. Then I would just alternate or work them, you know, as you know, maybe you set up the cones and do that for a couple times. And then when you get the goats, you do a session, then, you know, take a break, and you can move those cones outside and work outside, and you wouldn't even have to do it in there. So, you know, you could move back and forth. So, but you can do them at the same, you know, same days and stuff, you know.
And so when I have her loose in there with the goats,
Yeah, she's not loose, but they're loose.
they're loose, but she's on a long line.
Right. I
Okay.
would get a lighter long line that isn't so heavy that she can drag. And, you know, if you think it's really bothering her and she's not being aggressive, you can take it off. But I've seen her be really aggressive. And so I think you'd be better off to get a long line that was maybe 10, 15 feet long, that was a lot lighter, so that didn't impede her. And yet, if you need to, you can get to her, because I mean, if she turns on and goes back to like she was in Georgia, she could really go after your goats, you know, just like she goes for your cats. And so if you don't have a way to get a hold of her, you could have a huge train wreck with her running them into the fence, you know, possibly breaking their necks, biting them. And I mean, it looks so unlikely, but I've seen her and I know she has that in there. So I'm not going to say, oh, just let her loose, because you could have a tremendous train wreck, and I don't want to be responsible for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want her to hurt those goats, especially not the pregnant one.
Right. Well, you don't want her to hurt any of them, but
Yeah.
you know, I know it's in there. I've seen it. So I'm not going to say, oh, just let her loose. The goats would be loose. I don't want them on leashes, but you know, you can drop that. You can drop the long line, but don't just let her loose in there with them, because you could have real problems.
So initially it looks like we're about to get cut off, but initially I should just keep hold of the long line and see what she does.
Yeah, for the first 2 seconds, and then when she doesn't do anything, you can drop it.
Okay.
It's just so that if you need to get a hold of her in an emergency, you don't have to get up to her collar. You can get 10 or 15 feet away from her, because that might be all the closer